Hi guys, welcome to my channel Vinyl Beauty, or welcome back. I'm Debbie if you don't know me. So today's video is going to be all about the new Mcgrath Labs Mothership 11, the Sunlit Seduction palette. So this gorgeous palette here, it's had so much controversy on the internet for such an innocuous looking kind of neutral palette. There's been a lot of vitriol about this palette because of the colour story. So we're going to dive into that. And I'm going to show you the palette. I'm going to swatch it, which I don't normally do that on my channel. I'm not the greatest swatcher, so you'll have to forgive me if that's not amazing. But I think this one deserves a swatch out just because of the controversy on it. We're going to look at the packaging and compare it to some of the other palettes as well, because not only are the shades quite similar to other colour stories that she's done, you'll notice a lot of similarities in this packaging. So we're going to dive into that. And I'm going to compare some of the shades to previous palettes just to see just how similar is this palette. You know, is it justified what people have been saying about how similar it is? And then I'm going to create an eye look and test out the shades and have a little play. So if that all sounds good to you, let's just jump straight into the video. Okay, so as I say, my name's Debbie if you've not been here before. I'm from the UK, and my makeup style really is to use bright, colourful, bold eyeshadows, mainly from indie brands, and create quite dramatic eye looks. But I love Mcgrath, or did do, because of how avant-garde she was, kind of, you know, the runway looks that I see on her Instagram. And so I picked up my first palette some years ago, and then I'm such an eyeshadow palette collector that I just decided I wanted all the Motherships. So I have all of them, all 11 of them. Got quite a lot of the quads as well, but I'm not going to compare this one to the quads, else this video will end up super long. But we are going to look at a lot of the similarities. But before we dive into that, just want to talk a little bit about the launch. Now, Mcgrath palettes, particularly the Motherships, are super pricey. It's a luxury brand after all. You're getting gorgeous packaging, very heavy component, you know, and the shades themselves are generally good quality as well. So I feel that they do justify the price, but what's been going on lately is very strange. So there was a lot, as I say, of controversy around the colour story. People were really disappointed because it's such a rare event to get a Mothership. There's only one a year, and to see another one that's very pink and neutral toned leaning and that didn't have the special shades, we'll come on to that as well in a moment, that disappointed a lot of people. And the palettes normally in the UK go for £115, I believe. I think that's right. And I picked them up from the Mcgrath website. And it's quite a good deal to the UK because you don't get any customs and you don't get any shipping. So what you see is the price you pay, and she has multiple sales. So I was just going to wait for this palette, quite honestly. I wasn't going to pay whatever it came out at, and I was going to pick it up in Black Friday or whatever. But then I saw some links being shared by various influencers. Babs Beauty had one, Morgan Turner, Charlotte Holcroft. All of the usual suspects that would use Mcgrath had got these links to get, if you click on the link, early access, because the palette came out on the 2nd of August, but this was like a week before, I think. You got early access and 30% off with the code THANKS30. And the palette had only gone on the site for £99. So it ended up being £69.20, I think it ended up. And not only that, you got a free gift as well. So you got a little size of the blush, and this one is in the shade Paradise Venus. I already own it, and it's what I'm wearing on my cheeks today. And you've also got the Xtreme black eyeliner, and it's very, very small. It's a mini size. So I think these two items together, I wouldn't have paid £25 for. I question the value in that, but to get them free, not going to complain. So I got my palette for £69.20 or 40, I can't remember the pence, but £69 essentially, and with these two items free as well. So not too bad a deal, completely free delivery. And it came super quick as well. Mine arrived on Wednesday. I'm filming this on Saturday the 5th because of work. I didn't have time to do it justice until today. So let's have a look at the palette first of all. We are going to be comparing it, as I say, to lots of others of the palettes, but let's not keep you waiting any longer, because I feel that her palettes look way different on the promo shots than they actually do in real life. And so they look quite boring, honestly, when you see them revealed. And then when you get them, They are really beautiful. Now I'm not going to be able to show like how gorgeous those shimmers are, but maybe when I swatch them I'll be able to show you. They're not the baked formula, they are a shimmer formula, but super sparkly. So the ones that are the sparkly beautiful ones at this end of the palette, and there are a couple of a bit more traditional shimmers in there as well, and 3 matte shades. So we're going to be playing with as much of this as we can, and we're going to do a quite deep and dramatic look as much as I can get out of this palette, because that's my vibe for makeup. But before we get into the swatches, just want to talk a little bit about the packaging. So you can't deny this packaging is absolutely stunning. It's gorgeous. But I was like, when it was first revealed, I was like, is this just a re-promote of an existing palette? Because I'm like, I've seen this before, surely. So I dug out all my recent palettes from the brand and compared them for you. So this is it side by side with the Sunlit Seduction. Fairly similar, but not too similar, because the colour, sort of the base colour behind the picture, is at least distinguishable from this one, but fairly similar, you will agree. We've got like the face at the bottom, we've got the crown, you know, fairly similar. Doesn't stand out too much in your collection when you're reaching for them. Going back a bit further in time, this is the Mothership 9, the Utopian Dream. This one is super similar, I think. It feels to me like she's photoshopped the sunglasses and just changed the base colour of like the headdress and called it a day, which seems a little bit lazy in my opinion in terms of like the packaging. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit different to distinguish it. And then we have it here against the Mothership 8, the Divine Rose 2. That one's a little bit easier to distinguish, I think, because of how the face is shaded. Obviously there's no sunglasses on that one, but again, super similar. And just for reference, this is the Mothership 7, the Divine Rose 1, or just Divine Rose, but it was the first one that came out. And that is quite a bit different, I think, in terms of vibe. We haven't got the headdress, sunglasses, the roses are different, quite distinguishable, I think. And I thought maybe this is just a recent trend from the brand, but then when I've laid out my palettes together, she has done this before. So I'm going to show you 2 others that are very similar to each other, not similar to this one at all. So we've got the Bronze Seduction and the Midnight Sun, and these are pretty much the same image and just a different colourway behind them. So she has done this before, I just didn't really clock it before, I think because each of the newer ones are so similar. And if you wonder why I'm making a big deal of this, I'm a big packaging person. It's a massive part of what makes me interested in buying from a brand. So I'm going to talk about the previous one so that you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the Decadence, completely different. This was the All Shimmer palette, that's Mothership 4. Mothership 3, the Subversive. Love the packaging on this one. It's so punk rock. It's, yeah, this is probably my favourite packaging from the brand. And then we have Mothership 2, the Sublime. Again, it's just so recognisable. You know that this is the one that's got the pop of green in it straight away when you look at this. And then Mothership 1, Subliminal, which is just a cool tone dream of a palette. One of my favourites in my entire collection, but probably my favourite Pat McGrath palette to this day. That maybe, or the, I don't know, any of the first 3 really. But today's video of course is about the Mothership 11, the Sunlit Seduction. So I'm going to swatch it out and I'm going to describe the shades as we go and do it kind of a bit more in a detailed way rather than just showing you a swatched arm. What I'm going to do is swatch it in the 6 that are here that are not the glittery shades, and then we're going to swatch that quad at the end. So the first shade we're going to swatch is this one, Skin Tense Radiance. Is a sort of shade that we see from Pat quite often. It's quite a champagne-y sort of tone, just a standard shimmer, great for the brow bone or inner corner. Next up we're going to go into Nude Rose, this one here. This one I think we've seen multiple times before, so I'll be interested to see how we go when we swatch out other pink leaning palettes from Pat. But it is that beautiful blush salmony rose pinky sort of shade, really pretty. I love a shade like that. I've built that up a few times. I've not got any primer on my arms here. Then we have Hypnotic Bronze, which is a shimmer. So there's no reflex in that, but it's quite intense and saturated in colour. I really do like that actually. Moving on to the second row, we've got Extreme Vermilion Dusk. One of the ones that I'm really excited for because I love a deep, dark, kind of chocolatey sort of shade like that. Ooh, I'm excited for that one. So it's a chocolatey brown but a bit of redness to it, which I'm all about. Love that. I think that's gorgeous. That's going to be going in my crease and outer corner for sure. And we have another standard shimmer, Copper Dawn. It's a straight up copper shimmer. Probably will build up to be quite foiled on the eyes, I think, that one. But again, no reflex, no sparkle, it's just a straight up standard shimmer. And then the last of the mattes is Sienna Mystique, which is this one here. That one's just that kind of warm tone caramel, kind of crease into transition shade for me. Quite a useful shade though. I do like the tones of it. I think it goes beautifully with some of the shimmers that we've already looked at. But for me, the most exciting part of the Mcgrath palette is of course the shimmers. So we're going into those next. So this is Astral Pink Fetish, this one here. Ooh, I like the look of this one. So this is ultra glittery and sparkly. It's not a glitter, so I don't wear pressed glitters, but it's got a lot of glitter packed in that shade, and it's pink with a gold reflect. Really, really gorgeous. Then we've got Blitz Crimson Ecstasy, one of the ones I'm most excited for in the palette. Oh, that's a rich burgundy, really, really gorgeous. Oh, I love that. It's got almost like a coppery base to it, but with pink reflect through it. Super, super beautiful. And I don't think we've seen a shade like that from Pat before. Certainly not that I know of. You can see it better swatched on my finger actually there. Next up is Astral Amethyst Allure, so quite a cool tone, kind of lilac-y shade. It's got a neutral base to it, but it's packed with lilac-y reflex. Some gold reflex and some lilac reflex, really pretty. And last but not least, we've got Astral Gilded Aura, which is the gold in the palette. And that is a gold sparkly shade with a slight hint of pink sparkles in there. Really pretty. So that's the palette swatched out. I'm sorry I'm not the best swatter in the world, but I wanted to just swatch it out live on camera and show you. So now we're going to get into looking at some comparisons with the previous palettes and how much of a dupe is this colour story of other palettes that Pat has in her Mothership line. So first up, I wanted to compare Sunlit Seduction with Moonlit Seduction, and they are quite different. There's not too much similarity there, but I think if you've got one, they complement the other well, and you've got cool tones and warm tones to play with. So you might, as somebody that doesn't want too many neutrals in your collection, only need these two to complete all of your neutral wants in your collection or gaps in your collection. But that's those two together. They've both got the same formula in the special shades, in the Astral shades, in terms of they're not the baked formula and they're the more glittery shimmer formula. Next up, I wanted to compare Utopian Dream with Sunlit Seduction. They're probably the most similar, but with Sunlit Seduction, obviously you've not got the baked formula, and you do still have the baked formula of Blitz Astral shades in the Utopian Dream, but they are both quite warm toned. There's a lot of similarities in the mattes. It's a lot less similar than you might think to the Divine Rose 2, particularly in person. I don't know if it's showing on camera, but the special shades again in the Divine Rose 2 are the baked formula, and the one that's showing pink at the top there is the duochrome that goes pink to green. The mattes are cooler toned in the Divine Rose 2, and the shimmer there is a lot more Barbie pink than in the Sunlit Seduction. They are quite different when you really see them together. I don't know if on camera it's showing that, but they are quite a variation. We have it against the Divine Rose one. I love the Divine Rose one because it is so cool toned. I think the Sunlit Seduction is a lot more warm toned. Again, you've got the bake shades in the Divine Rose one, which you don't have in the Sunlit Seduction, and the shifts on those bake shades are really special in this one. It's one of those that when you get it and you see it in person, it looks more impressive than it's showing here on camera, but as I say, they are quite different. But there's a couple of shades like that rose kind of coloured matte are quite similar to one another. I think there's enough variation between the two. Then we have the comparison against the Midnight Sun, and I think these are the least similar to one another that we've seen so far. And yeah, quite a different vibe entirely. Obviously a lot more pink in the Sunlit Seduction and a lot more full toned in the Midnight Sun. Then we have a comparison against the Bronze Seduction, which was the Mothership 5, and I think that's one of the best that she's ever put out if you love neutral shades or warm tone leaning shades. The special shades in that one are just incredible. The shifts on them are gorgeous, and if you were thinking about one or the other, I'd definitely recommend the Bronze Seduction over the colour story of the Sunlit Seduction. But there is a little bit of crossover as well with the mattes, but I just think there's more interest in the Bronze Seduction, more that you can do with it. And I think that was sort of the turning point when things started to go a lot more pink and neutral toned in Pat's palettes compared to the ones I'm going to now show you, which were the earlier ones. Comparing now to the Decadence palette, there's nothing that's the same in here at all. They're completely different vibe. The Decadence is all shimmer and some fabulous foiled shimmers, no glittery shades, but fabulous formula in those shimmers. And I don't use this one enough actually, I really should dig this out more, but I'd say they're completely different in colour story. Then we have a comparison with the Subversive palette. Will we ever see the likes of this again from Pat? It was such a creative, beautiful colour story. The special shimmer shades are gorgeous. There's so much depth in this palette. There's so much you can do with it. Can you tell how much I love this palette? There's nothing too much that's similar in it to the new Sunlit Seduction either. So if you've got this one, you could quite happily have this one and not have any dupes there, I think. Then we have the Sublime. There's a couple of mattes that are slightly similar in tone, like there's a sort of dusky pink rose shade in the Sublime. The green in this is the star of the show. This is when you had a pop of colour, particularly in the shimmers in Pat's palettes, and each one of them was slightly more unique than the last, and yeah, I love this palette so much. But I don't think it's too much of a dupe. You've got gold again, of course. Gold is a colour that Pat repeats a lot, and there is some pink in here, but a completely different vibe for the pinks than they're in the Sunlit Seduction. And then we've worked our way all the way back to number one, which was the Subliminal, and they're nothing like one another. This one's a cool tone dream of a palette. It's so unique in Pat's line, and yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I've got a video on this one if you're interested. I'll try and remember to link it. But yeah, that's those two together, nothing like one another. Okay, so that's the comparisons. I think it's different enough. I think if you were to take some of the mattes in particular from other palettes and kind of put them all together, then you could make something similar, but maybe not with these finishes in the shimmers. This shade that she always does, the Skin Show shade, there's a lot of those across the palettes, so that's not unique at all. And some of the mattes crossover, but I think these shimmers are different enough, particularly because of the formula that they have. As I say, it hasn't got the bake shades, which everybody adored, and it seems to be that we're moving away from those. We haven't seen those in the last two of the Motherships or in the last quad, so yeah, we're starting to move away from that. But I think it is different enough, as I say, and I'm excited to play with it. So next we're going to create an eye look with this one, either to show you if you're on the fence what it performs like, and if you've already picked it up, maybe give you some inspiration of a look that you might be able to achieve with it. So let's just hop straight into the tutorial. I'll bring you in a bit closer and we'll create an eye look. So I've already primed my eyes for shadow using the Juvia's Place Eye Prep Eye Prime Eye Primer, and we're going to be going into the palette now. Really excited. I don't want to go too kind of candy pink, so I don't want to use that matte or that shimmer really, because I think that's going to give me that Barbie pink vibe that I don't really want. So I'm going to go with Blitz Crimson Ecstasy, mainly on my lid, and probably the gold as an accent as well. But I think I really need to keep my crease as neutral as possible, so I'm going to use Sienna Mystique in the crease, and I'm going to deepen up with that shade which is called Extreme Vermilion Dusk, which looks beautiful. So we're going to start with this one, as I say, which is Sienna Mystique, and take a Singe Beauty EO2. I'm just going to take that through my crease, inner to outer. I don't set my eye primer. I'm used to working with colourful shadows, and so you get a lot more pigmentation if you don't set your primer. But I find working with patch shadows that they do kind of stick a little bit to the primer to start with, so I'm just tapping the shadow on in the crease, and then I'll work to blend it later. But the tone of that is not too pink at all, so that's good, because I don't want to make it, as I say, a Barbie pink look. I don't know about you guys, but I've literally had enough of seeing anything Barbie on my feed. It's not like I don't like Barbie, but when something becomes a thing, like everybody's posting things about it, and it gets a bit boring in the end, so we don't want to end up with a Barbie look today. But that shade is a beautiful colour. So now I've got it in my crease, I'm just going to work on the blend a little bit. And I do love how Pat McGrath's shades blend, how mattes really do kind of almost give you two colours, like you don't need another colour to blend out the initial shade that you've laid down necessarily, because they'll blend themselves really well. So I'm just taking a smaller amount of the shadow now just to blend. I'm going to do the lower lash line at the end because I want to put some intensity in my waterline and on my lower lash line with that black pencil, and try that out as well. I didn't buy the eye primer. There was an eye primer released with this palette, but I didn't pick that up. As I go up a bit higher, just taking a lot less on my brush so that we can start to diffuse this out. I'm going to swap to a bigger brush, the EO3, pick up a very small amount now and just dust that through like the transition area, just to further get that blended look. That's a stunning sienna sort of caramelly shade, really beautiful, blending really nicely. I'm going to use Skin Tense Radiance, this one here, as my brow bone highlight. That's pretty, it's just your normal champagne-y kind of tone, but I love a highlighted brow bone. Quite like a matte highlighted brow bone, but we haven't got anything light enough to do that, so this colour's working fine to do that. Now I really want to get some depth in my outer corner and into my crease. I'm going to go in with Extreme Vermilion Dusk now. I'm going to pack that in the outer corner. And that's definitely giving us some depth. Now I'm going to run that through the crease as well, but I just want to start with like really making sure we've got some intensity in this outer corner here, and then just bring it slightly through the crease, just turning the brush on its tip to bring it through the crease and just really define that crease area. And slightly above my crease I always go slightly higher so that you can see the deeper colour when my eyes are open. And I love how Pat McGrath's mattes layer on top of one another. Like I'd quite often go in with my deepest shade to make sure that it was deep enough with a lot of brands, but with Pat McGrath you can get the depth without doing that, so I think you can get a better blend by going in with the lighter shade and then packing the deeper shade on top. And this is going to be nice and dark and smoky when we're finished. I think you are going to be able to get a real intense look out of this palette, which is what I'm hoping. I'm going to take the pencil now and run that through my waterline and onto my lower lash line and smudge it out. I'm going to take that right into the corner because, as I say, I want this to be a smoky look. I'm just going to wrap it a little bit around my tear duct area. And run it slightly on my lower lash line as well. I'm going to smudge that out so that we get lots of smoky intensity on the lower lash line. Oh, I love that pencil, it's so easy to work with, it's very creamy. Glides on the eyes really, really well. Quite impressed with that. That's the good thing about getting the free gifts, you get to try something that I probably never would have bought that because I've got other pencils that do the same thing, and would I buy a Mcgrath version of that, but this is actually really nice. I'm going to run Xtreme Vermilion Dusk along the lower lash line. I'm using a teensy tiny brush to do this though, because I don't want it to get too out of hand. So I'm just packing that over the top of that black pencil and a little bit below it. And then running Sienna Mystique underneath that. I'm really making sure to blend that out. Get a nice blended effect on this lower lash line. Just going to add a touch more of the deeper colour just in this outer corner so that it wraps onto the lower lash line. Now I'm going to go in with NYX Glitter Primer and cover the majority of my lids to where we've got this deeper shade. Not being too precise with the glitter primer because I'm not looking for kind of a cut crease effect, I'm looking more for a blended effect with this one. I'm going to take Blitz Crimson Ecstasy, this one here, on the majority of my lids and on a sort of slanted kind of direction. And that is so, so beautiful. I love deep shimmers though. I don't know if shimmers as deep as this are for everybody, but it certainly gives some impact, that's for sure. So as I say, I'm bringing it on a diagonal so that it meets up with that matte that we've put in the outer corner, but we've got less of it on this front part and more of it in the outer corner. Then we're going to take the shade Astral Gilded Allure. I'm going to take that in this inner part but on a diagonal here. That's super pretty and dimensional. It's got a bit of pink reflect, as I say, it's not completely gold, but it's definitely got some gold going on in that shade. It's going to blend a little bit in the crease, just where that shimmer's gone up into the crease a little bit, just to keep it blended there. Okay, that's the look to this point. Just going to hop off camera for mascara and a lip, and I'll be back with you to show you the finished look and to wrap up my thoughts on the palette. Okay guys, so this is the finished look with the Mcgrath Mothership 11 Sunlit Seduction palette. I had a great time playing with this, and I really love how dark and smoky and dramatic I've been able to make the look, particularly using that pencil. That's a surprise star of the show for me. I never would have picked this up on my own because I thought I've got lots of pencils that I love, but it's so creamy, so blendable. I think I need a full size of this one when this one runs out. To finish off the look, I've just used mascara, no eyeliner or anything like that, in addition to what you've seen anyway. But I've gone in with a melt lipstick. This is Lucretia. First time I've used this one, but I think it really complements the look well. If you've been here before, I don't really do too many nude lipsticks. I like a colourful lipstick. I was going to go with a really dark vampy lip, and then I thought, no, I'll keep it a little bit more toned down. But it still really complements the colours in the eye look, I think. So, my thoughts on the palette then. Well, it's the same quality that you've come to love and expect from Mcgrath. For this price point, you'd want it to be good quality. The mattes are exactly the same as they've ever been. They are pigmented, but they blend like a dream. They blend on themselves, and you can create a gradient of blend with just one shade, which is the mark of a quality shadow. This palette's made in Italy. They're always good quality, I think, when they're made in Italy. I don't know what it is about that, but it always seems to be the case. The shades down here from swatching them and then from using these two that I use today, these two on the end. They're very glittery and dimensional on the eyes. You probably can't see that so well on camera as you can in person, but they're really going to pick up the light. So I think this is quite a good day to night palette. Like, you could create something quite simple and just daytime appropriate, just using the shimmers are a lot more toned down, but you've got these glittery toppers for nighttime. They're not the Bliss Astral formula, the baked formula that we're used to, but they are super pretty. They're glitter for people like me that are scared of like big particle glitter because it's very finely milled, but they're more of a shimmer, kind of pressed kind of formula. They're definitely not the baked formula that everybody knows and loves and wants more of from Pat McGrath. The colour story, yes, it's pinks again, but I think it's different enough. As I said in the main portion of the video, there's a lot of crossover if you compare it to all of the palettes, but I don't think many people will perhaps have them all. So who is this palette for then? Well, neutral lovers are going to love it if they don't have a palette like this in their collection, because as I say, it would go from day to night. There's some special formulas in here. I think if you've got one or two Pat McGrath palettes already, then you're going to have crossover in this, so it's down to you whether you're a crazy collector like me. I think the Pat McGrath stands are going to want it. You know, if you've got all 10 of the motherships, it's kind of like completionism for me. I just have to, once I start collecting from a brand, I have to finish, and I didn't want to miss out on it. Yes, I'm disappointed to see the packaging is still the same pretty much. It looks like she's just got somebody gone in on Photoshop and just tweaked it a bit and put it out there. I think that's a bit lazy. I'd like to see something a bit different and wow factor now on the image in the packaging. And, you know, not this packaging, but the outer packaging could definitely be jazzed up and do something different, you know, so that we can look at them all on the shelf if we've got them all and know which one is which, because they're so similar. In terms of like what people have said about there's not enough colourful mattes, let's just address that one. So I love the mattes from Pat McGrath, as I say, and I also wanted to see colourful mattes, and they do exist in this holiday palette, and I thought that was quite smart. So this one's the Celestial Nirvana palette, and I've used a lot of the shades in this one. I took it on my holiday at Christmas to Lanzarote, and I wanted a palette that would give me neutrals but then some pops in the outer corner of the colourful mattes, and I really do enjoy this palette. You've got warm tones, you've got some neutrals and blues and greens, but you can pretty much do anything you want to do, and it's a good formula. It doesn't have those like special shades though, it's just standard shimmers. But having said that, everybody was calling out for it. It didn't sell very well, and you can pick it up for a song. I think it's still available for half price on the site. So that tells you that the main consumer for Pat McGrath isn't looking for colourful shadows, or not on the daily anyway. And when they're looking at spending, you know, pushing £100 on a palette, even with codes, people are going to want to use all of the shades. And I think the market for a luxury brand is different from the market from an indie eyeshadow palette, where people are looking for those unique shifty tones of shades, and they're wanting, you know, a curated and interesting and different packaging and colour story. That's not what Pat McGrath is, and particularly not anymore. It's kind of a shame to see like the transition away from like the bit more avant-garde runway kind of makeup to what she's doing now, which is a lot more mainstream, but it obviously makes sense for her economically to keep the brand going, so, and to get the sales. So what would I like to see from the brand as a colourful makeup lover that likes to do some neutrals as well? Well, I think this was smart. This was the Nocturnal Nirvana palette, and it was a holiday release from quite some time ago. I think it's 4 or 5 years ago now, but I love this because it's got the same quality packaging as the big motherships, and it satisfied the need to have Blitz Astral shades in colours that you're not going to probably find in the big motherships, and these are just all such beautiful colours. So I think if she's not going to give us the bake formula in the Motherships, and perhaps they're a bit expensive to produce, then it would keep consumers happy, particularly at a holiday release, to have the bake formula in a palette like this. I also think what might be smart is to do a quad like this, but with colourful mattes in it. Because then if you're picking up a neutral palette, and there's a lot to choose from, a lot of pink leaning ones, orange leaning as you've seen, and neutral leaning, but then if you don't want to pick up another Mothership because of the cost of it, then you could pick up a quad of colourful mattes in this kind of shape and size and quality. Then I think that would satisfy a lot of people. But whether she'll do it, as I say, because of moving over to the type of brand that she is now, very mainstream. She's now in Ulta. Now that's a recent announcement. She's got investment backing. She's not an indie brand by any means. She's a big billion-dollar corporation. I don't think we're going to see the likes of the Sublime and Subliminal palettes ever again. But I think that would be a smart way for the brand to go. But I'm really happy I picked the palette up, particularly for that vermilion shade. As I say, that shimmer there is absolutely stunning. So for me, it was worth it for that. And I think it's such a great compliment to the Sunlit Seduction if you have that, because then you've got warm tones and cool tones in this beautiful glittery formula. So that'll wrap up my thoughts. You'll have to let me know if you're interested in the palette. Have you picked it up? What do you think of it? If you've used it yet, let's chat about it down in the comments. If you're new to my channel and you found me through this video, then hi and welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Hope you might consider subscribing before you go. I do quite a bit of Pat McGrath content here and there, but as I say, my main focus is on indie makeup, because that's where all the creativity, all the special formulas and all the amazing packaging, you know, they do it better, they do it first, and I don't think you're going to see the likes of what you see in indie makeup ever in a mainstream luxury brand. But as I said, I'd love to have you subscribed if you want to be. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you have a lovely day or night wherever you are, and catch you in the next one. Bye guys.